Hello, everybody. Welcome back. Happy Wednesday. Happy Hump Day. Hope you've been having a pleasant week. I don't know. I was thinking about what to do this week, and then I was looking at the random stack of things I have just right off camera that way, and I saw I had 2 packs of some historic autographs, history stuff that Milo sent me that had been sitting there, and I thought, you know what? This will be fun, and I also found something else, and I maybe wanted to get a little bit of an opinion. So today, I'm going to take a look at a pack of the 2022 historic autographs, the Washington Chronicles, stuff I have opened before, but this stuff that I have not from 2023, and it is Flight. And interestingly enough, with Monday's video just talking about the Wright brothers and their patent for the flying machine. But since we've done these and we haven't done these, we're going to open up the Washington Chronicles, go through them, and just take a little time. That's it. We're just going to take some time. We're going to enjoy some history, because that's fun to me. Here we go. The rules of civility and decent behavior. Oh, could we use those now? The rules of civility and decent behavior in company and conversation is a list of 110 etiquette rules composed by French Jesuits in 1595 and translated by Francis Hawkins into English in 1640. The rules were popular during Washington's time and are well known today because George Washington copied them, word for word, as a handwriting exercise around 1744. Did not know that. These rules were important to Washington. He regularly referred to them and is believed to have memorized the whole set. That's a lot of etiquette. Now, I'm going to just set all these up there. If I'm not mistaken, again, I often am, I believe etiquette is the term for, in French, I think it refers to like little notes, because that's how it started. They actually would put little notes around so people knew what and what not to do. I could be wrong. Pancakes, let's go. Oh, I'm sorry, hoe cakes, which is the older version of them. The hoe cakes. Family members swear that George Washington's favorite breakfast was a plate of hoe cakes, like Johnny cakes / cornbread, smothered in butter and honey and accompanied by a cup of tea. The cakes were soft and easy for Washington to chew. We all know the teeth thing, to a degree. The Washington version of hoe cakes are pancakes made with yeast and cornmeal and cooked on a hot griddle. I think it's the yeast that really distinguishes a hoe cake from everything else, because it's a lot fluffier. I think. I could be wrong. Here we got Nathaniel Greene. All right, we got some people. The Fighting Quaker, 1742 to 1786, was a major general in the American Revolution, where he was General George Washington's most trusted officer. Greene set up supply depots on the likely troop travel route through New Jersey to keep the army intact and permit counterattack at Trenton. Washington made him quartermaster general of the Continental Army and then commander of the Southern Theater. Greene's tragedy caused major losses for the British that eventually led to the showdown at Yorktown and Britain's eventual surrender. After the war, he turned to agriculture. He died after a short illness, aged 43. That is definitely a name in Revolutionary War history. Very prominent name. What do we got here? Summerseat. It's a beautiful-looking homestead. There we go. Summerseat, the home of Thomas Barclay in Morrisville, Pennsylvania, served as headquarters for General George Washington immediately after crossing the Delaware into Pennsylvania. It is likely he made the decision to attack Trenton instead of defend Philadelphia while staying there, a decision that reinvigorated his war effort. That is quite true, because for most of it, Washington was kind of being pushed back. Today, Summerseat is a museum and historic site operated by the Historic Morrisville Society and is the only home to have been owned by 2 signers of both the Declaration of Independence and the U.S. Constitution, Robert Morris and George Clymer. Robert Morris, also a name in Pittsburgh. Robert Morris was college back then, it's university now. Francois Joseph Paul de Grasse. That is a name. 1722 to 88, a French admiral who aided George Washington in the Battle of Yorktown, which ended the Revolutionary War. On September 5th, 1781, de Grasse's ships battled with British ships attempting to rescue the surrounded British troops at Yorktown. De Grasse severely damaged the British ships, which then retreated to New York, leaving Cornwallis surrounded by the Continental Army with no way out but surrender. And the rest, as they say, is history. What we got here? Federal Hall. We've got a little sketch. Federal Hall in New York City is where George Washington took the oath of office and where the first United States Congress met. It was also the home to the Supreme Court and the presidential offices. It is now a museum that honors the early days of America. So many museums I really need to go to. Quite a lot. The President's House in Philadelphia. That's right. That's where it started. Was located at 6th and Market Streets and served as home to George Washington while he was president. The 3-story house was rented from financier Robert Morris. Washington had 9 slaves in the house whom he rotated every 6 months back to Mount Vernon to prevent their being freed by Pennsylvania law. Previous to Washington living in the house, it had been headquarters for General Sir William Howe and the British Army. A lot of those houses really have a lot of the deep, deep history. And there's the man himself, and that is the famous Athenaeum portrait, the one I think everybody knows of. Never completed. That is true, because I think if you go down here, it's actually, they cut it off. There we go. Is an unfinished painting of George Washington by Gilbert Stuart, commissioned by Martha Washington when George Washington was 65. Stuart never finished the painting because he didn't want to part with it. He started using the unfinished painting as a reference to produce 130 copies, which he sold at $100 a piece. The unfinished painting was ultimately acquired by the Boston Athenaeum, hence the portrait's name. Okay, sense is made. The painting was used as the model for the engraving on the $1 bill. The president did not like the portrait as it shows his mouth bulging and misshapen due to ill-fitting dentures. I never really noticed that before. 2 more, and then we turn our attention to the flight, and I think we've got our one short print here. If freedom of speech is taken away, then dumb and silent we may be led like sheep to the slaughter. Not much more needs be said. In 1783, said George Washington to his officers in his Newburgh address on March 15, 1783. Washington was responding to an anonymous call for mutiny and advising his officers that they should all have the freedom to be talking through the problems, not resorting to violence. Washington is not referring to the freedom of speech in the First Amendment, as that was not written yet. And that is quite true. And our final one, and this, I think, if I remember correctly, it is kind of bronze, so I think it is a short print. Yes, it is a short print of $6.99. This is Myth, Washington was Catholic. I don't actually know. Myth, Washington converted to Catholicism on his deathbed. One legend holds that on his deathbed, Washington summoned the Catholic priest Leonard Neal to his home in Mount Vernon. It was said that the night before his death, several of Washington's slaves were sent to St. Thomas Manor in Maryland by rowboat, where they found Neal, the Jesuit manor superior. They ferried Neal to Mount Vernon, where he heard Washington's confession, conditionally baptized him, and received him into the Catholic Church. A 19th century Catholic historian, Martin I.J. Griffin, concluded that this is doubtful. However, very interesting story. And on that, that's kind of where we're going to take an interlude because we've got another 8 packs of reading coming up. I found something that Dan, we all know Dan, Hockey Stick Talk Nation, Dan's Comic Corner, that he sent me a while ago that I kind of that got put underneath something and I forgot about. It is a tin full of cards, and I figure I'm going to do that next week, but I want to have something to just ramble about. So much like we're talking history, I don't know. What would anybody think would be interesting to hear me talk about for probably 10 minutes while I go through some potential TTM fuel coming from Dan? Let me know what you think, because otherwise I'll just ramble about who knows what. But now we will turn our attention to the pack of Historic Autographs Flight. This is a set I have not opened yet, have not really even seen much of, I think, other than Milo opening it. I think that might be it. Either way, I'm looking forward to it, and we just talked about like I said, the Wright brothers, and there's something weirdly shiny. That'll go in the back. And their patent just on Monday, so this should be interesting. And the pictures are going to be good. TWA Flight 800. There we go. Whoa, that's a long one. TWA, okay, July 1996, exploded and crashed into the Atlantic Ocean just 12 minutes after takeoff from JFK International Airport. All 230 passengers and crew on the Boeing 747-100 jet were killed, including crime victims advocate Pam Lichner, and 16 high school French club students. People speculated that a terrorist act had caused the explosion. Some claimed they'd seen a missile heading toward the plane. The flight recorder captured the captain commenting on strange fuel low readings not long before the explosion. The NTSB, that's National Transit Safety Board, I think? I can't recall. Launched a 4-year, $40 million investigation into the cause of the crash. Nearly all the pieces of the 170-ton jet were retrieved from the ocean floor, and the jet was reconstructed. The NTSB found that a spark, likely caused by a short circuit, had ignited the fuel in the mostly empty center tank. They issued several new safety recommendations, including regular maintenance programs and design standards for fuel tanks, including inerting systems to reduce the amount of oxygen inside partially empty fuel tanks. And that's the problem. It's not so much the fuel, but God, I used to know. I think it's stoichiometry or something along those lines. Stoichiometric ratio, in which a flammable gas has to be mixed with the precise level of oxygen in order for it to be flammable. It's very fascinating, very frightening. Southern Airways Flight 932. Okay. November 14th, 1970 was the worst tragedy in the history of American... Oh, that was the Marshall. Yes, that was the Marshall plane. I was like, why does that ring a bell? All 75 people, including 37 people, members of the Marshall University Thundering Herd football team, 8 members of the coaching staff, and 25 boosters were killed. After a 17-14 loss to the East Carolina Pirates, the flight was going home to West Virginia. As the aircraft was on its final approach to the airport, it collided with treetops and caught fire. The aircraft crashing nose first into the ground. There were no survivors, unfortunately. An NTSB investigation determined that the accident was due to pilot error. The pilots descended below the airport's minimum descent altitude. 9 team members did not board the flight. They were injured, had academic or disciplinary issues, or were otherwise unable to travel. These players became known as the Thundering Herd and formed the nucleus of the team that was rebuilt after the tragedy. Their story of resilience and perseverance inspired the 2006 film We Are Marshall. It is a very, very powerful film to watch. Chuck Yeager. There we go. Finally, something that's not a plane crash, but tons of information. 1923 to 2020 was the first man to fly faster than the speed of sound. Also a U.S. Air Force officer in 3 wars, piloted the first captured enemy MiG-15 and helped train astronauts. Did not know that about the MiG-15. In 1941, he began his career in the Air Force as a mechanic. Within 2 years, he became a pilot. 1943, he shipped out to the UK and flew P-51 Mustangs in combat with the 363rd Fighter Squadron. He named his aircraft Glamorous Glenn for his wife-to-be, Glennis Faye Deckhouse. On March 5th, 1944, on his 8th mission, Yeager was shot down over France. He escaped to Spain with the help of the French resistance. In 1944, he became an ace in a day, downing 5 enemy airplanes in a single mission. Finished the war with 11.5 official victories, including one of the first over a jet fighter. A half victory is when 2 pilots both hit the enemy aircraft. Okay, thank you, Card, for explaining that. After the war, he became a test pilot. Didn't know that. In 1947, exceeded the speed of sound, Mach 1, 767 miles an hour, in a Bell X-1 aircraft, Glamorous Glennis. Over his career, he flew more than 360 different types of aircraft. At the end of his life, he served as technical advisor for Electronic Arts flight simulator video games. That's why they were impossible, because they had him on staff. These are a lot of fun. Eddie Rickenbacker. Why does that name ring a bell? Yep, okay, there we go. See, it's all coming together. Was the most successful American fighter ace in World War I, the ace of aces, with 26 kills. Before the war, self-educated, Fast Eddie was a champion race car driver and automotive engineer. When he enlisted, he was assigned to be the driver for General Pershing. However, he ended up driving for other officers, impressing them with his ability to fix automobiles as well as drive. He parlayed this talent into a job as the chief engineer at the new flight school in Issoudun at Issoudun, and the opportunity to learn to fly. He spent just 17 days as a student pilot before graduating and becoming lieutenant. Good God. He continued his flight training in Issoudun. I think that's how it's pronounced. I apologize if it isn't. He was not initially accepted by the other pilots, as he was not a college man, but his successes in the air changed that. He wrote about his war exploits in his book, Fighting the Flying Circus. After the war, Rickenbacker founded Rickenbacker Motor Company, and he bought the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and Eastern Airlines. Rickenbacker's awards also include the Croix de Guerre, 7 Distinguished Crosses, and the Medal of Honor. That is a hero right there, folks. The Zeppelin. The Zeppelin. What a thing. The Zeppelin, 1900 to 1937. A big hydrogen-filled rigid airship is like a balloon, but it has an internal frame and can be steered. It was invented by Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin, a retired German army officer. The first Zeppelin, LZ-1, took its maiden voyage in 1900 over Lake Constance, 3 years before the famous Wright brothers' flight. Ooh, that I did not know. LZ-1 was 420 feet long by 38 feet wide with an aluminum frame covered by canvas. It held 399,000 cubic feet of hydrogen. That's so much hydrogen. Inside 17 rubberized cells. Suspended below the hull were 2 metal gondolas for passengers. Each gondola had a 4-cylinder, 14-horsepower, water-cooled Daimler gas engine to power outrigger propellers mounted on shafts. Pitch, the angle of a center descent, could be shifted by up or down by sliding a weight along the hull. Okay. By 1910, the first commercial air service used Zeppelins. The second most famous Zeppelin, DLZ-127, or Graf Zeppelin, could fly 80 miles an hour. Wow. And was the first airship to make it all the way around the world. I had no clue of that. It flew almost 1 million miles over 590 flights, including 144 ocean crossings. During World War I, Zeppelins were used for patrols and bombing runs. The crash of the Hindenburg was the end of the Zeppelin era. I had no clue about any of that, if I'm honest. Here we go. Neil Armstrong. 1930 to 2012 was the first man on the moon, July 21st, 1969, when he said, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." However, that is not exactly what he said. There was something else. There was something that was lost in the transmission, but that is not the full quote, I do not believe. Began his college education under the Holloway Plan, free education in exchange for service in the Navy. He achieved half a degree in aeronautical engineering from Purdue before he entered the Korean War in 1951, flying a Grumman F-9F Panther from the aircraft carrier USS Essex. After the war, he finished his degree and in 1962 joined NASA. On March 16, 1966, Armstrong made his first journey into space on the Gemini 8 mission. July 16, 1969, Armstrong went into space again on Apollo 11, taking the first walk on the moon. He left NASA in 1971 and taught aerospace engineering, went to the North Pole, and served on the Rogers Commission, which investigated the Challenger disaster. Armstrong's footprints on the moon will be there for 1 million years. The moon has no wind to blow them away. I still don't know why our moon is simply named Moon. Like, every other moon has a name. The penultimate card, Mary Jackson. Why does that name ring a bell? We're going to find out. 1921 to 2005. That's it. That's what it was. The Hidden Figures thing. Which, not entirely historically accurate, but unfortunately you have to make some changes for Hollywood. The first black female aerospace engineer at NASA designed spacecraft components, conducted experiments in the supersonic pressure tunnel, and authored and co-authored many research reports. Jackson began her aerospace career in 1951 as a programmer at the West Area Computing Division at NACA, the precursor to NASA, where she worked for NACA's first black manager, Dorothy Vaughan. She took engineering courses. She had to get special permission for this because she was black, and went on to study the effects of high wind speeds on aircraft. She achieved the most senior engineering position, but was unable to rise to a higher position, being a black woman. In 1979, she decided to take a demotion to become the manager for NASA's Equal Opportunities Program, where she worked hard to improve career prospects for the next generation of female and minority mathematicians, engineers, and scientists. In 2019, Vaughn posthumously received the Congressional Gold Medal. In 2020, NASA renamed its headquarters the Mary W. Jackson NASA headquarters in her honor. She is featured in the 2016 film Hidden Figures. Oops, apologies there. And our final one, and now this was the kind of shiny, we've got something, and it's Amelia Earhart. Well, there it is. It's a short print, one of 600. That is a beautiful looking little frame that they put that in there. There you go, Amelia Earhart. 1897 and 1937 set 7 aviation records for speed and distance. She was a celebrity, a role model for women all over the world. Her awards included the American Distinguished Flying Cross and Cross of the French Legion of Honor. Earhart began her career in 1922 in a used chromium yellow Kinner Airster biplane, the Canary, flying at 14,000 feet, a world record for female pilots. In 1932, Earhart flew her new bright red single-engine Lockheed 5B Vega airplane, the Little Red Bus, from Newfoundland to Ireland in 15 hours, the first female pilot to fly non-stop alone across the Atlantic. Later that year, she was the first pilot to fly non-stop alone across the U.S. On June 1st, 1937, Earhart and her navigator Fred Noonan took off from Miami, Florida in a custom Lockheed Electra 10E, and after several stops landed in Lae, New Guinea. Is it Lae? I'm not actually sure. Then headed for Howland Island and disappeared. The Navy concluded that they ran out of fuel and died in the Pacific. However, they may have landed the plane on the uninhabited island of Nikumaroro, then died as castaways. Dr. Robert Ballard, famous for locating the Titanic, is working on this theory now. And Robert Ballard also, not only is he the man who found Titanic, but also is the same man who found Bismarck and PT-109. I think that was John F. Kennedy's boat. That was fun. That was a lot of fun. I'm really happy I did that. These packs have been sitting there for a while, and the shine on that Amelia Earhart card is absolutely beautiful. I want to thank you, Milo, for these. These were fun. I love history stuff, and it's good to get some history stuff back. Link to Milo will be down below. And let me know what you think, because I'm going to figure out something to ramble about next week when I go through the Dan Tin of Surprises. I'll probably change that name about 13 different times before I actually film the thing. But let me know what you think down below. Let me know what you thought of the opening. And hopefully you enjoyed. Have a great rest of your week. We will see you tomorrow for some jank nonsense.